Hey, this is This Freaking Movie. Welcome to This Freaking Movie. I'm Tony and today I'm reviewing Once Upon a Time, in Hollywood, starring Brad Pitt, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Margot Robbie. Oh, guys, this freaking movie. Like most people, I am a Tarantino fan. My top three are probably Django Unchained, Inglourious Bastards, and probably this one along with Pulp Fiction. I haven't really decided the order, but I'm obviously a really big fan. I mean, technically, I should probably love the others more, but I didn't see Jackie Brown or True Romance or Reservoir Dogs until I was an adult. So, I'm kind of going with what I know. Guys, I loved this movie. I'm finding it very hard to find anything not to like about it. First, we'll discuss with no spoilers. The cinematography was outstanding. I found myself recognizing excellent blocking and tracking, and the music. Oh my God, the music. Some of those tunes I'd never heard before, but I immediately went out and got on my Spotify app and downloaded as many as I could. I mean, this was just the coolest music I'd ever seen. And I loved the diegetic nature of the music. Most of the time it was coming from the radio in Rick Dalton's car, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, but driven by Brad Pitt for many reasons. But that was just an excellent part for me. It really set the mood for the movie, and I don't think it would have been as good as it was if it weren't for that music, just making the experience spectacular. Now, this movie didn't really have a plot per se. It was more a character study. So the small character moments and the dialogue between the characters was what made this movie as fantastic as it was. I was not bored for a single second, and every single conversation held some type of interest for me. I mean, there's one part where Leo and Brad, or should I say Rick and Cliff, are watching an episode of one of Rick Dalton's TV appearances as a bad guy, of course. And what you see is sort of an MST3000 sort of thing, and they are watching the TV, and what you're seeing is a close-up of this old TV set, and they are watching the show and commenting along with it, and it's just something that you would do with your friends, and it was a lot of fun to see that. It was something I'd never seen in a movie before, of people watching themselves and commenting like it was a funny mystery science theater 3000 moment. There's so much more about this movie that I would love to discuss, but I'd rather wait for the spoiler discussion. The fun details were endless. I mean, there's one thing about an alcoholic drink, but for more on that, you need to go read the Medium review by Mike Holtz of We Watched a Movie. He goes into this very detailed analysis of drinking a Bloody Mary, and it's super interesting, but I don't want to take credit for that idea, so go look up Mike Holtz, Holtz, on medium.com, and look for his review of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And go subscribe to their channel. The link is in the description. So my final thoughts, everything in this movie matters and it's deliberate. There is nothing in this movie that's wasted, although some people might disagree with me, but I, for one, really appreciated everything about this movie. So as for my final score, I give it a 9.5 out of 10. It was a 9 for certain choices made that I don't want to go into now, but after further reflection for a few days, I've just decided it's a 9.5. I loved the parts that others didn't like, and I think I understood the things that other people didn't want to analyze. Or maybe they analyzed and didn't like it, but movies are subjective, so what can you do? I think I get and appreciate the choices that were made. I'm not more sophisticated than them, I'm just more forgiving, especially to Quentin Tarantino. And anything Leo does is okay. Except for the feet. Dirty feet on the windshield, taking up the frame. Quentin, you've got to get a hold of this. Please tell me this is the last of this. Enough with the feet. Spoiler warning. The violence. Boy, oh boy, the violence. It was fantastic. It was well done, literally and figuratively. It's just the makeup work. Every single time somebody was punched or had violence thrust upon them was just, mwah. Those Manson girls, they really got what they had coming to them, along with Tex. Which brings me to the ending. I loved this ending. Let's talk about Leo as Rick Dalton. He is an aging TV star who tried to go into the movies in the 60s and doesn't quite make it. So now he's just a dying star who goes on TV every week as the bad guy in some sort of serial And that's all he has going for him. And Al Pacino as Mr. Schwartz, not Schwartz, that's very important, apparently, wants to get him to go to Italy and do spaghetti westerns, but he's trying to get out of that. So what I love about the character of Rick Dalton is how sincere he is about his acting. Yeah, he's kind of shallow. Yeah, he treats Cliff Booth, played by Brad Pitt, as his errand boy, but he just seems like a genuine guy who's kind of caught up in the lifestyle. I mean, it had to be very vapid back then. I mean, look how vapid actors are right now, so I can't imagine the 60s being any different. It was an interesting character choice to give him a slight stutter. The stutter isn't played for laughs, which I thought was a pretty classy move. It's more of something that manifests whenever he's feeling insecure. So whenever he's talking to people that he disagrees with or that he's trying to impress, the stutter comes out a little bit, but whenever he has more confidence, it goes away, especially whenever he is acting on camera. The scene where he is acting on camera in the Lancer show, I mean, it was Calvin Candy, but really professional. I mean, I just enjoyed the crap out of watching that scene being filmed, especially going from where he is constantly having to get the line because he is drunk as a skunk for the first part of it, and then he goes into the trailer, has his little hissy fit, which was just a fantastic one take. I mean, that's one of the coolest one takes I've ever watched. And then he goes out and he shows himself and everybody else of what he's capable of, that he did not die off in the 50s with Cowboy TV, that he is still a great actor, just like Cliff Booth tells him. So I really enjoyed Leo's performance. It has to be one of my favorite performances of his that I've ever seen. So it's really sad for me that Quentin Tarantino is probably only going to make one more film, because I want him and Leo to work together forever. Yes, I call him Leo. We are on a first name basis. I don't know if you know that. So Brad Pitt, this is my favorite role of his. Right? It's almost tied right here with Tyler Durden, maybe, and a few others. I don't know. Cliff was a great character. I mean, he was just the nicest, sweetest, most badass guy you've ever seen. And what I loved about him most was his meekness. Yes, his meekness. Even though he was a violent man, the way that meekness is defined to me is a sheathed sword. You have the capability of using it, but you don't unless you have to. And that's what makes Cliff Booth so freaking cool. So when he's laughing at Bruce Lee about his kind of pompous little, I can kill anyone, I'm better than everyone, which Bruce Lee was better than everyone, let's not play around. But whenever he's laughing at him, he's kind of humble. And whenever Bruce Lee challenges him to a fight, he tries to stay away from it. Like, no, I don't need to fight you. Everything's gonna be okay. But Bruce Lee insists, and he gets hit, and then he beats the crap out of him. Throws him into a freaking car. I mean, that was amazing. So he didn't do that unless he had to, because the fight was thrust upon him, and I thought that was really neat, especially with the ending. And we will talk more about the ending. But the fact that he gave all those people what for was just so amazing. I mean, I just enjoyed it. Let's just talk about the ending. Why don't we? The violence of it, the subverting expectations. I mean, I really did not want to watch this movie and actually see the Sharon Tate murders happen. I didn't. And because I'm a Tarantino fan and I've watched Inglourious Bastards and I've watched Django Unchained, I know that he is creating a fairy tale, so he is going to take history and do something else with it. And I love what he did. I love the idea that they were stalking out the house in the car and Rick Dalton comes out and gives them a bunch of screaming and yelling about being on a private driveway, and then they decide to go kill him instead. And whenever they walk into the house and they see Brad Pitt, and Brad Pitt is tripping. That was great. He didn't even know if they were real, and then he started calling him the devil. And the dog food can. Who knew that a dog food can would become one of the most badass weapons on earth? I just loved that. And the violence against women, let's talk about that. It really didn't bother me. I'm an equal opportunity villain killer. So whatever that says about me, I guess you can decide for yourself. But I know there was a Hollywood Reporter article about Tarantino and his violence against women. But In one hand, they're saying that, you know, he doesn't cast enough women in his movies and Sharon Tate didn't have enough to do as part of the plot, which was deliberate because she's a real person and you don't want to play with her life. I mean, you want to be respectful to the character, right? But I digress. So we want more women in the movies. We want them to be treated equally. And yet whenever two of them get beaten to death and one of them burned to death along with the guy who was with them who gets beaten to death, all of a sudden they have a problem. So we want more women in things, but not if they're going to get beat up. All of a sudden, whenever violence comes into the picture, we're fragile little beings and nobody can touch us. So forget that. I loved the ending. I thought, hey, they're coming up here with knives and they're trying to kill people. That makes you a bad guy. And whenever somebody's tripping acid with their pit bull, you're going to get killed. And I loved the flamethrower full circle. I love hearing stories about actors who take things home with them from sets, and the fact that he took home the flamethrower, it still works, and he used it to kill one of the Manson girls. Just, it was amazing. I love this movie. Maybe I'm sick, I don't know. And once again, with the ending being changed, it's a fairy tale, and I also see it as wish fulfillment. You know, what would have happened if they had gone to a different house? Hopefully they wouldn't have killed anybody and they would have been killed just like in this movie. But Sharon Tate would have lived, and Abigail Folgers would have lived, and Jay Sebring would have lived, and their other guests would have lived, and the 18-year-old that got killed, I think his name was Steve Parent. What would have happened if they would have lived? And it was almost like cosmic karma, that Rick Dalton has a failing career and he lives next to the Polanskis and he wishes he could get to know them to get somewhere. And one day he saves their lives, not even thinking about it, and he gets rewarded with their friendship. It's just a nice little wish fulfillment. Not that we wish Sharon Tate would have lived so she could give other people a leg up, but we wish she would have lived. So I digressed on Cliff Booth. I want to talk more about him. The friendship between Cliff and Rick. What was that all about? And what does it say about friendship? Now, I'm a girl. Girls have different friendships than guys sometimes. Not always, but sometimes. There's dynamics between people and friendships that are always different. They seem to have a reciprocal friendship with each other. You know, Cliff took care of him. He took care of the house. He was his number one man, his number one, a guy. And they seem to be okay with that. And Cliff is so cool and laid back, and he's just happy to be here. He's happy for the opportunity, and he knows Rick loves him deep down. Even if he has him fix his cable and drive him around, they love each other. And I'm guessing that's a guy thing that I'll never understand, but I absolutely appreciate it. And I think they were good friends to each other. And I also loved at the end, whenever Cliff is in the ambulance and Rick is looking at him, that was supposed to be their last night together. They were just gonna get wicked drunk together and then go their separate ways. But the tragedy brought them together and made them realize how much they actually love each other. So it was kind of like a bromance, a little I love you man in the 60s in Hollywood, if you will. Same area, I guess it took place in LA. That really doesn't matter. And I just wanna say about the Bruce Lee fight, I don't think that was a fantasy. I think that was a flashback. I think that whenever Rick Dalton tells him that he's not gonna be able to even ask to get him a job, there's no point because so-and-so knows so-and-so and they're connected to this person or that person and it's just not gonna work out. I think that makes him reminisce on what happened with Bruce Lee and Kurt Russell's character and Zoe Bell's character. And once he reminisces on that, the bitterness is gone, the anger is gone. It's more like, yeah, that happened. I get it. A few other shining stars of the movie were Andie MacDowell's daughter. Sorry, I don't have my name with her. She is just adorable, isn't she? I hated seeing her feet, but I get it. But she was a really cool character, and I like how she brought Cliff Booth over to the Spawn Ranch. And then you have little Trudy, the method actress. Oh, actor. She doesn't like the word actress. Or Pumpkin Puss. I thought that was an interesting little exchange. She was just a bright, shining moment in that movie to give Rick Dalton the kind of motivation he needed. And whenever she complimented him afterward, it just warmed my heart. She was so cool. I love that little actress. She's in American Housewife, which is a great show, and she's Anna Cat in that show. You should go check it out. Fabulous. And then Dakota Fanning. I hadn't seen Dakota Fanning in a long time, and her as Squeaky Fromm, she was so imposing. And they didn't need to show anything else that Squeaky Fromm did or anything else about who she was as a person. You got it right there. And that whole bit with Mr. Spawn and her and their relationship, 100% real. And I thought that was interesting that they kept that in the narrative. So like I said at the beginning, before the spoilers, I give it a 9.5. In fact, I'd probably give it more of a 9.8. Enough of the feet. And probably after I watch it a few more times, I'll get over that. And it'll probably be a 10 out of 10 for me. I mean, most Tarantino movies that I see are 10 out of 10. Even if there are things wrong with them, I don't care. Movies are subjective, and you're allowed to love something despite its flaws. I mean, that's what love is, right? And I love Quentin Tarantino films. And I love Leonardo DiCaprio. Can we have him in every movie from now on? This freaking movie. Thank you for checking out my channel. I really appreciate that you're here. You can find me on Facebook on the This Freaking Movie fan page, and you can follow me on Twitter at freakingmovie4. I like you more than a friend.